Good evening, y'all. This is the Hillbilly Think Tank, and I am Spencer Cat coming at you live from Tunnel Hills in Hardin County, Kentucky, where I'm running for Magistrate District 3. Y'all, we know here in Hardin County that there are three things that make life worth living, and that's this pursuit of happiness and life and liberty. So, y'all, I just want to say happy St. Patrick's Day. At least that's something to smile about, right? And as we are smiling today, just can't help but thinking of, other St. Patrick's Days when I was on deployment and didn't get to celebrate my favorite holiday. But I'm keeping a memory of those who are out there serving right now, deployed, fighting for what they know to be true, and that's the person to the left of them and the right of them has their backs. And I have their backs too. I just don't want them to have to sacrifice for a war that is uncalled for. All right. We need to, when we put people in harm's way, like myself, like my brothers, and like my dad did, we need to make sure that we do it knowing what our objective is and what our strategy is. Well, an unforeseen and unintended effect of this war is that the prices of groceries are going to go up. Right? This is the president who was going to lower the price of groceries on day one, hasn't done that. And at the same time, the cost of groceries are going to go up because urea, which is used to make fertilizer, 30% of the world's urea supply comes through the Strait of Hormuz. If I remember correctly, it's Qatar that it comes from. But regardless, they're in the Middle East. They give us a lot of the world's urea, which we need for commercial fertilizer. So if farmers can't get enough of this urea in a timely manner, that's going to drive up the price of groceries. Not to mention the fact that higher price of diesel, which just hit $5, and it hasn't been that high since I think it was 2020, 2022. Yeah. Diesel's at $5. That's how we transport the groceries. So we're going to drive them higher that way. So y'all, is this what we voted for? Is this what we were counting on? Is this what everybody thought that they needed this year? Right? Well, let's take a minute and see if our Secretary of Defense, because I refuse to call him the other name, actually has a plan for an end goal and a strategy. Does he actually even know what their plan is and what their end goal is? I don't think so. But let's listen to him.
Pete Hegseth.
How embarrassing at this point is Pete Hegseth? We've been watching some of his press conferences. The guy sounds nutty.
I mean, Hegseth has literally become more deranged than the SNL skits at this point. And it would be funny if he wasn't literally killing American soldiers. And so for him to stand up there, you see each time he screws up and we screw up and we lose Americans, he gets more desperate and he screams louder and he just shows his weakness. He is fucking pathetic at this point, and he has the blood of now 13 Americans on his hands, and he needs to be held accountable for that. I actually started a website called firehegseth.com, and everybody upset about this war should go right now and sign up for that, because we need to fire Pete Hegseth.
How embarrassing is
So, y'all, I couldn't agree more. We need to fire Pete Hegseth. We fired the head of Homeland Security, we absolutely must fire Captain Whiskey Pete Hegseth. Kegsbreath, that is. So, in the meantime, I don't want to see more American sons and daughters killed overseas for the hubris of Kegsbreath and Diaper Don. So let's look at some more reports here and see if the president has come up with more of a plan since the last time we talked. Maybe he has, maybe I just didn't realize it and he actually has more of a plan now. Let's find out.
Well, Donald Trump has never been able to convincingly express sympathy or sorrow for anyone other than himself. That is the mark of a sociopath, of course, the inability to feel sorry for someone. Many sociopaths are capable of saying, I'm sorry for your loss if someone in your family dies, but they are incapable of actually feeling sorry for your loss. They just know they're supposed to say those words, those well-rehearsed words. But the laziest and most mentally vacant president in history, Donald Trump, as he approaches 80 years old, no longer has the energy or the concentration to be able to continue to pretend that he feels sorry for even the members of the American military killed in service in his war. No president has ever gotten this wrong until Donald Trump. Acknowledging and honoring American military deaths is something every president got right. Most brought no particular eloquence to the moment, but they always found the words to acknowledge and honor military sacrifice until Donald Trump. Last night at 9:17 p.m., with the cameras rolling, Donald Trump's mind and feelings appeared to be in apparent sociopathic lockdown, possibly, when he was asked about the 6 Air Force personnel on a refueling plane that crashed in Donald Trump's new war zone. Watch what Donald Trump says and does in a moment that so obviously calls for sympathy and admiration and honor, things Donald Trump apparently just cannot feel.
Do you have a comment on the 6 service members?
Who else?
Nothing, not a word, just an immediate turn away. Who else? Who else has a question that's not about the war dead? 6 American Air Force personnel lose their lives in a refueling accident in Donald Trump's war, and Donald Trump doesn't have a word to say about them and their sacrifice and their families' suffering. Air Force Sergeant Tyler Simmons, age 28, of Columbus, Ohio, was on the plane that went down. Here's what Tyler Simmons' cousin and grandmother said to a local NBC affiliate yesterday afternoon, several hours before Donald Trump could not think of a word to say about the sacrifice Sergeant Simmons made and the suffering of his family.
This could have been prevented. We didn't need to be in this war. This is uncalled for. And this is what we get.
Families are suffering right now. Not only our family, but there are other families that's lost loved ones. And just to create a war because you want to create a war, it's not right. It is not right.
The 5 others whose deaths Donald Trump refused to even acknowledge or comment on are Major John Klinner, 33, of Auburn, Alabama; Captain Ariana Savino, 31, of Covington, Washington; Sergeant Ashley Pruitt, 34, of Bardstown, Kentucky. The other 3 on that plane were all from Ohio, serving in the Ohio Air National Guard. They were Sergeant Tyler Simmons, Captain Seth Koval, 38 years old, of Stoutsville, Ohio, and Captain Curtis Angst, 30, of Wilmington, Ohio. The dignified transfer will take place Wednesday and be closed to the press at the request of the families. That doesn't mean Donald Trump won't try to find some way to exploit the dignified transfer, as he did exploit the first dignified transfer that occurred during his war. Donald Trump disgraced himself as the only president in American history who has tried, or would even consider trying, to raise money over the bodies of the war dead in a war that he started. Donald Trump has sent out a fundraising email using a photograph of Donald Trump wearing a ridiculous and disrespectful hat at that dignified transfer. Any other president would be immediately rebuked by unanimous votes of the House and the Senate on a resolution condemning the president for dishonorable behavior, at a minimum for doing something like this. MS Now reports Donald Trump's fundraising email with the photograph exploiting the war dead tells the victims of that email solicitation, quote, "As a national security briefing member, you'll receive my private national security briefings, unfiltered updates on the threats facing America, the straight truth on border invasions, foreign adversaries, deep state sabotage, and every danger the fake news hides. You'll get the inside scoop direct from me, President Trump." And imagine being stupid enough to receive that email and send in that money, believing you were going to get something truthful from Donald Trump. Donald Trump continues to deepen his pathological lying about his war, saying today he has spoken to a former president, a Democrat, who supports his war. That is, of course, an obvious lie. Each of the former living Democratic presidents, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, and Joe Biden, issued statements saying that no, none of them talked to Donald Trump about his war. That kind of public hallucination by a president is more than enough to invoke a 25th Amendment procedure based on the mental health grounds that the president is incapable of serving, and remove the president from his duties, especially in the middle of a war started by that same incompetent president who cannot explain why the war started or what will be necessary to end the war. Donald Trump gave the stupidest answer in the history of the question, when will the war be over?
I don't think it's going to be long. When it's over, this is going to bounce right back so fast.
When are you going to know when it's over?
When I feel it.
Okay.
I feel it in my bones.
Donald Trump has gone from saying the United States military doesn't need anyone's help in this war to desperately begging any and all foreign countries to help him in his war. Not surprisingly, no other country has yet to step into Donald Trump's war zone. Donald Trump has asked them to send ships to the.
So, as I said last night, you don't bully your best friends for 1 full year, threaten them, and then expect them to come help you when you decide to attack another country. They're not going to come running to your aid, running to your side to help you out. And yet, Diaper Don and Whiskey Pete Kegsbreath have no clue about this reality. So, what are we going to do? Why on earth is no one calling for him to be impeached? Forget impeached. Let's just invoke the 25th. How much more of our economy has to be wrecked? And most importantly, how many more lives have to be lost for someone who's just going to know it's over when he feels it in his bones? All right, let's see who we got on here tonight. Tom, we didn't need to be in this war. FDJT. Yeah. Tom, it's too effing early in an elective war to be sending the Air National Guard overseas. Absolutely. You know, we should not be calling in the reserves when we're this early in the war. Aren't there active duty units flying the KC-135R? And even they shouldn't be there. FDJT. Yeah. So absolutely on the spot, on the nose. The 25th has to be invoked by the cabinet, and he has purposefully stacked the cabinet with syphilitic sycophants so they would not invoke the 25th. Absolutely. You are correct. And thanks for reminding us of that. The last time around, he had folks in his cabinet that were not completely yes men. Of course, he sequentially fired most every one of them, and or they would resign. But still, there were folks like General Kelly who were not complete yes men to him and who protected us from chicanery like we have going on now. Tonight requires the 93 proof instead of the 86 proof. I absolutely hear you. So, yeah. And on that, let's take a little break in celebration and think about the good things for a bit. Since I remember this as, again, my favorite holiday of the year. There's nothing you have to do to or give away to anybody. You just have to enjoy yourself, enjoy your friends, enjoy some good corned beef and cabbage or whatever you like, and Guinness or Irish whiskey. And I recall when my brother died on March 14th, I was able to at least get together with some of his friends and tip a couple back and memory him just a couple days later on St. Patrick's Day. So now it has even more meaning than it ever has for me. So let's have a little laugh. And I think this one will make you laugh.
This is for one person? Where's my money Iris now?
Another round for the dog!
No. I have a flight tomorrow.
Yay!
This is for one.
All right. So, y'all, hopefully we're all celebrating and having a good time. Got Tom says, Old Forester 1910 for the night. Oh, yeah. I prefer bourbon whiskey to Irish whiskey, but not by a huge margin. Yeah, I completely agree with you, Tom. Absolutely. Tom, I cannot bring myself to consume green beer. Yeah, me either. It's dark Guinness for me, never green beer. And I probably will see if when my wife gets home, she might want to go out. She likes the Irish car bomb, although of course I would never call it that in Ireland. But yeah, hopefully she'll make it back in time and feel like it. Well, y'all, so again, this war has got so many costs. The cost in human lives, that's the biggest one. We have to know that there is a real reason for this before we go into any war. We've already lost too many lives, and two of them are Kentuckian lives. One from here in Hardin County and one from our neighbor in Bardstown, who we just saw tonight, Tech Sergeant Pruitt. And we cannot forget the family of our local Hardin County native, Sergeant Pennington. So, I will tip one back tonight for both of them, hopefully. And I really hope we consider what it is we can do to put a stop to this. Making 5 calls a day, that's one of them. 5 calls a day to our senators, our congressmen, and to all those who could put an end to this. Let's encourage Thomas Massey, who's doing his best to put an end to this. So that's one other thing I'll do tonight. And y'all, just remember, here in Hardin County and in all of Kentucky, we know that our Kentucky motto, united we stand, divided we fall. We can only live up to that motto if we love our neighbor as ourselves, if we recognize that, hey, I am my brother's keeper. I am my sister's keeper. That is why I am running for office, because I believe in serving this community. We have a great community, a great county, and we live in a great state. I want to see it live up to its fullest potential. All right, y'all. Please like and subscribe to the channel. And bless your corazon. Have a happy St. Patrick's Day. And remember all of those deployed overseas right now. And copycats, before I go, good to see you. Happy St. Patrick's Day to y'all.